saying is I make breakdowns. I make videos and breakdowns for my projects. And these projects, usually you could just upload a video. Here I made an explosion, but I also put then more videos below or also images. These breakdowns help to explain yourself better and explain that it's not just an explosion. It's more cool because I don't know, I use the vector field here to distribute the smoke or something, or I use this in this technique to prevent the smoke from going through. There's one specific thing which makes my career maybe a little bit special. When you look at some of these game art tricks, some are not so impressive if you already know the technology. For example,
hello everyone, this episode is number 6. We have interviewed Simon Schreibt on the Discord server and on Twitch live. This time I have lost some of the quality from the mic. I apologize for that. I was taking my input from somewhere else as I was trying something different technically. I really do apologize for that. I tried to fix it as much as possible. I hope it's not a big deal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Simon Schreibt. We talked about a lot. About different things, including AI, including VFX industry, including how he made his journey into the breakdowns that he creates, why he creates them, and other things as well. Yes, this episode was one of my favorites, and Simon Schreibt was one of my legendary guests list people that I had on, thankfully. So I thank him again for accepting the invite. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this one. It's a bit long, and the mic is bad, but thankfully Simon is talking much more than I am. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoy it, and I'll leave you to it.
Because then in the Generalists, and I love that you know so many things and you open so many channels, because that's exactly the target group of the guests I want to have on. Generalists that knows a little about a lot, so to speak. And I want to ask you, like, where, I ask this question to every guest, where and how, let's even better, when did this all start, your passion into visual effects? Like, walk us through school, right? And how did this interest in writing the blogs and researching, where did the spark happen?
Yeah, quite early. But in general, just a side note, I have the feeling that often VFX artists start out as generalists. Because in VFX you combine art and code and also a little bit of game design. At least you have to work with game designers to make the effects fit. And so I have the feeling that it's quite common for VFX people starting as generalists, having many interests. So if you invite a VFX artist, there's a high chance that they at least started as VFX as generalist. And for me, I started actually as 3D environment artist. And I modeled for several years, and but then switched to VFX. But yeah, it starts quite early. I don't know, to be honest, where it comes from, but I had an interest in computers. It was just there as soon as I heard that there is something like that. So, and I was quite young when my dad told me that the computer we have, which we usually only used for painting in MS Paint, as kids, he told me that there is something like QBasic. And you can program the computer with that. And this is interesting because I immediately was interested, but I don't know where it came from. It was just there. So, and then I went to the computer and searched for this QBasic thing. And it's really nice because it's one of the few languages where the examples from the help file, you can copy and paste and they actually work. You don't have to include any extra stuff or do complicated things, setups. It just works. And so it was very easy to learn. It was very fun to tell the computer to print out a word. And I mean, yeah. So, and so you already know now that I started with code actually. So I started in a technical thing because we are talking about, I don't know, it was a very old computer, not even a Pentium chip. It was in the era before. And so the Prince of Persia was a game you could play maybe. It was not like now where you are overwhelmed by all the games and stuff like that. So you would have to be done other things with your computer. And then I also went into Pascal and a little bit of C, and then I met people who also were interested in the thing. Yes, but and I played a bit of games, but and I think everyone who is liking games thinks about like, oh, it would be cool to do that someday, on my own. And so it was the same for me. But I started with code, but then I realized quickly that my mathematic skills and my programming skills are there, but not super high. And actually, I enjoy doing graphics more.
Interesting.
And so it started that I branched basically my skills.
That's so interesting, man.
Yeah. Do you? Is it similar for you?
No, I mean, I haven't heard so many people that start into, especially into visual effects. I personally, I don't know if it is you. You might know more than me, but I haven't heard a lot of people that were started, or at least started with code, and then realized that the appeal of the visual is actually what they're into. Because usually I've seen like 2D animators, for example, that do frame by frame animation that might have some interest in like how would it be in a game. So they get into learning like the Niagara, right, or particle systems in Unity, or the VFX graph and things like this. And I've only seen it the other way around. But in your case, it's actually you have coding as background.
Yeah, I mean, there was not so much choice because back then there was no internet, there was no big tutorials. The books in the library you could get about Pascal and C would be a bit boring. It was just foundations, and there was no book like, hey, make a game with Pascal now. And there was actually one book I had making games, but the CD or the little disc was missing, so I didn't have any software. And it was more, back then it was a renderer called POFRay. It was a rendering program for rendering even ray tracing stuff, which took days back then. And you would describe the scene with script. So you would say, hey, make me a sphere with a radius of this and this. Actually, it's quite like now the procedural programs where you also basically tell it, make me a sphere with this radius, and then is a non-destructible workflow basically. So you could later say, now make the radius a little bit bigger, but of course everything was in script. But it was, I never found my way into that book. Of course, without software, it's very, very hard. And so I used what I could. And actually, I started using HTML because I was also interested in web design back then. And then I made a little text adventure with HTML. So basically, you would have a blank web page with just the text like, hello, you are a little hero and you have a sword. What do you want to do? And then you have 3 little links below. And one link would be go to the village, and the other one would be go to the whatever. And then you click and you come to the next web page. So I really try to make games with the limited tools I had, and of course the limited knowledge, because back then we would have already Pascal, but for example, there was no built-in function to load a bitmap in Pascal and show it on the screen. If you want that, you write it yourself, and I was not smart enough to do that. So that's where I really squeezed my way through the limitations. And I learned quickly what content production means, because I wanted to do a second game, a second text adventure in HTML, but this time with images, because in HTML you can include images very easily. And then this project never got finished because painting all these images takes just so much time. And so I learned quickly that scaling up a project like this is it's big. No. But I think it's fair to say that I early started with the wish, at least, to make games.
Yeah, exactly. But games are very they need visual effects. They need this immediate effect, immediate output, right? They want to put an input and they want to have it shown, right?
Yeah, I mean, except it's a text adventure, then you can get away without graphics. But then you render the graphics in the reader's head directly. Yeah, you don't. You skip the visual transfer medium. You just give words. But
even with that, there are like you could, for example, give the feel. Like for example, now Apple, if you update
Mhm.
your iPhone to the latest, they have those new animations to a text. Like if you want to prove a point, make it louder, sound louder, even though
Mhm.
it's just text. So it would slam the font on the screen like that to make it sound like it's
Oh,
loud. Yeah. So those are also like
nice.
those are this is the feel, right? And
Mhm.
games really you need to get that feeling accurately. There are actually game designers that are just experts on that. How does it feel? Does it feel like we want it to feel, or does it just feel meh? And so they usually
Yeah.
work with the visual effects as well a lot, because the visual effect is like one of the main things or the main outputs you get. Like for example, the Half-Life. I don't know if you watched that YouTube documentation they made lately.
It lately after you mean is it from I forgot the name. There's this one famous YouTube channel making amazing documentations.
Oh, okay.
Which one is it? One clip, no clip, no clip,
I'm not
no
sure what the
clip.
name is, but they really interviewed like the whole team, the whole Valve team back
Ah,
then that worked on Half-Life 1.
okay.
And so I forgot his name. He's very well known. He's the Valve guy, the one with the beard. What's his name?
Gabe Newell.
Yeah, exactly, Gabe. He was saying that back then it was so important for him that when the player shoots at at a like a I don't know, a cardboard box, that it would be
Yeah.
destroyed, and that the bullet would still be shown on the wall, because this feeds
Mm,
into the narcissistic. I don't know what he
yeah.
called it. Like I can't quote him, but like he was saying that the player needs to have this feeling that he or she did something to the world. They
Yeah.
affected the world in a way. And
Yeah.
for him, like he didn't care about the limitation of the generation, or of the PC or whatever. He needed that to happen, which was very interesting.
Yeah. It validates your presence in the game world. It's Half-Life already had this very nice feature. When you go to an NPC, they look at you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also something very, very cute and a nice detail to actually show that you have an impact on the whole scene. Yeah,
They also
yeah, that's
always
true.
talk to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, greet you and stuff. So that's important. Yeah, and it's of course nice. I mean, that goes for all the game systems. If you, or in general for every application, even imagine a button and you click it and nothing happens. I mean, even if the code is executed in background, but if the button is not animated, I was always, when I started with HTML, you could of course do buttons on your web page, and I always loved the effect when your mouse goes over the button and then the button changes already, like in a hover state. This is such an important thing, and it's really funny because it's not functional, because you can press the button and then it's animated. So the whole system would work without this hover effect. But having this hover effect is such it's hard to describe how big the impact is of you feeling that you are there controlling the UI and that your little mouse is actually like preparing the button to be clicked. It's and back then I would then sometimes just hover over buttons again and again and again, which I did because it's just such a cool effect. It's really hard to describe. People think I'm crazy maybe now, but back then it was the crazy stuff.
I mean, you gotta be a little bit crazy. Like we have the show reel right now. I downloaded a couple of your videos from ArtStation, and like you
Nice.
see
Thank
how
you.
much you really want to understand and want to explain as well. It's like what you do is constantly like, come on, guys, come on, here, let me tell you, which is amazing.
Yeah, there are several reasons for that. One, so what you're saying is I make breakdowns. I make videos and breakdowns for my projects. And these projects, usually you could just upload a video. Here I made an explosion, but I also put then more videos below, or also images, which explain details or tricks about this explosion. And sometimes while I'm learning, we discussed this before, I also record tutorials, which then also posted on the ArtStation website. And there are several reasons for that. One, we already learned that I sometimes forget myself stuff, and then I just watch my own videos. Then it's also very, very useful if people come to you and say, hey, how did you do this and this? You can just say, hey, I have a breakdown. You don't have to take the time again and again and again to explain it again and again. You can just say there's a breakdown. If you want, look it up. And several times I already had it that I also could say, hey, there are the project files. So you can download it yourself, because I always or almost always also provide the project files, and then people can download them and learn by themselves. So that saves me a bit of time when people come and ask stuff. That's that. And another reason, and this is maybe interesting for your listeners, sometimes I feel that I did maybe something cool or I invested time in a little detail, but it could be missed. If you just look at Explosion, for example, you see, oh, yeah, it looks nice, but you don't even notice that I worked 5 hours on this very specific thing, and I'm very proud, but it's a detail. And these breakdowns help to explain yourself better and explain that it's not just an explosion. It's more cool because I don't know, I used the vector field here to distribute the smoke or something, or I use this and this technique to prevent the smoke from going through a surface, or anything which for the user would be okay, but then sometimes only when you look under the hood, then you understand. Oh, there, that's cool, and that's why I also do these breakdowns. That's one other reason.
How often do you encounter people that have read and watched your tutorials and just said, you made me start my career?
It happens sometimes. Yeah. But it heavily depends on the where I am. Sometimes, it happens, especially, of course. I mean, only, of course, when you are in an environment which is about the topic. Yeah, it's not that I go on the street and people, oh, the VFX guy. Of course not. No. But when you are at GDC or something,
exactly,
it can happen. Or online, of course. But I just gave a little talk in Toulouse for a game development meetup. They have a very nice game development meetup for all levels. So there are total beginners, sometimes even people outside the industry but interested in gaming topics or game development topics, and also long-term professionals. And it was like 30 people, and I asked, hey, does anyone know my blog? Because the blog is the most known thing. On my blog, I collect game art tricks. So several, like over 80 articles now, which describe cool stuff. Not made by me, by the way, made by others. And they are really, really cool. And I just document them because they are so cool. And nobody knew the blog, which was good, because then people would not be bored, because the talk was partly about examples from this blog. So so it was new to all these people. But so it depends. Sometimes there are people like, oh yeah, cool, and sometimes there are people I never heard of it. And once actually, but this goes not about my VFX stuff. I have a German game development podcast, and one woman said she quit her current career because of this podcast and started a game development school. Started attending a game development school, and this made me a bit afraid, because if it doesn't work out now, then it's my fault. So this is actually, it is a bit scary when you affect people so strongly that they quit their career. It's like, oh, I hope it works out. Please don't be mad at me.
You can't take all the responsibility for that. I mean, I'm sure they played a game in their childhood and they were like, one day I want to do it. But, life happens. Sometimes you got to pay the bills. And that's why people, save money. And some people actually just work to save money and just like decide to learn something new. And I think that's cool too, maybe.
I mean, it's of course a huge honor when a project of yours has such a big impact, but it's also a bit scary at sometimes. And then, I mean, my podcast has not the biggest reach, but I understand now even better that when you have a bigger reach, then you also have a raised responsibility. And
Already have a question from the audience. Vexert have been talking a lot actually about how much he likes your stuff. That's cool. And he has a question: what is your favorite effect that you created or you discovered, or you did a breakdown of?
One which baffles me all the time, and that's why I also brought it up in my latest talk in To-Dos, is the homeworld backgrounds. It's not specifically an effect, but it's a tech art thing. VFX and tech art, they are like
very close,
together, right? And I don't know if you saw it, but actually, if I can share links in the little chat here.
Absolutely.
So basically, what happens is that in Homeworld, in the background, we have wonderful background images. But back then, this would not be possible, I guess, because it's Homeworld 2, so it's quite old. And for having a full skybox with that detail, that would be a huge texture, I would assume. And back then, computers did not have so much memory. And while looking at them, I noticed that some details don't look like brushed, like painted with a brush in Photoshop. And then I looked further into it, got into a mod forum, downloaded some mod tools, and then I loaded up these backgrounds. And then I noticed, when you scroll down into the article, you will see that this is actually not a texture. We are looking at a mesh, and the mesh has vertices and a lot of geometrical detail where there is stuff painted in the image. Like if you have a cloud, for example, then you would see some more vertices there, and they are assigned the color of the image. And what this means is basically that in areas where you don't have much detail, just a little color gradient over a big area, then you would have not so much geometry, and the colors are interpolated by the system on real time. And it's basically a way to save a lot of memory, because instead of having millions of pixels in a 4K texture or something, or you have just thousands of vertices, and interpolation happens on the graphic card, which means you don't have compression artifacts. This is just such an amazing idea to even come up with that. And I'm just fascinated by these things. It's so cool.
I always wonder, what came through the mind of the person who just discovered this. And how did they come across it? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have the idea, you have then to write a tool to actually make it. And so you have to have the programming skills to make it. Because, of course, we used vertex color on our little meshes sometimes in Blender, and, you can paint a little bit of vertex color on it. So it's not unheard of that you can assign color to a vertex, but then you have to have the skills to actually make a program, because the program generates an edge map from your image. And you notice maybe because Photoshop has a filter, it's called Find Edges or something like that. And so you have to first to do this step, like making an edge map, and then based on that generate this geometry, and it's just genius. And that's what I do on my blog, basically, finding out these super cool ideas and then document it, because it's too cool to be not to be shared.
That's like making your own school, man, right? So because all those people have spent maybe months discovering these workflows, and just the act of documenting this gives you a lot of knowledge, right?
Oh yes, I learned so much by that, of course. And it has two functions actually. It serves me as a learning platform for myself and now also others, and then it also serves me now that I sometimes teach. It helps me to have quickly references at hand, because when right now, you ask me something, I can give you here's an image, what I mean. This is a super cool example, and so this helps me also when I prepare talks or something. And then also it helped me to get jobs, actually, because to continue the road. I when I was into my HTML thingy and doing my little games, I had no idea how to do this professionally or if it's even possible. And then I made an how's it called? After school, you can go to university or you can do more practical education. Yeah. And I did this. No, it's not
what's it
intern.
called in German again?
It's Berufsausbildung.
Yeah, so like professions, like vocational school, basically. The closest thing I could like bring this thing, but it's like it's a German thing, by the way. Like it's its own thing. So.
Apprenticeship.
Yes.
It's an apprenticeship, and did it at Telecom, but it was more network oriented, so it was not my main focus. Actually, a bit sad because today I would find this also very interesting, but back then it didn't spark my interest as other things did. But there was one very important. This was still very important for me because there was a part of this apprenticeship where you would be together with other apprenticeship people. I don't even know how you call the people who do it. And one of them, we had some PCs there, and one of them brought Cinema 4D. And before that, I never saw a 3D program.
Oh.
And I was always wondering if you remember the old websites from the 90s, sometimes they have these. Imagine you take a sphere in Blender, you stretch it a little bit, and you write new on it, and then you let it rotate. And this you render into a little GIF, and you would see these things all around the 90s websites. And I was always wondering, how would they do this so perfectly? I tried it myself and painted every frame in MS Paint. and it, of course, never looked like this, especially not with the good shading and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw the 3D program, and in that moment, it was like, okay, that's what I want. And then I took it myself. I worked on the tutorials which were put into the program, and this was a very important step. So this whole 3-year apprenticeship was just worth for this one day where I discovered Cinema 4D. And then luckily in Berlin there was a game school, a private one, and then I was again lucky that my family put together, several people of my family put together money so that I could attend it. So it was also very, very big privilege to do this. And then I learned actually then do like Maya and Photoshop and what a UV is and all these things. And then I started as 3D artist.
Wow. Okay.
And we are not at the effect level yet. Because I worked on Sacred as 3D artist, and then for the add-on, like at the end of the production of Sacred 2, our tech artist left the team. And it was the one who did all the effects. Very impressive, by the way. He did all the effects for Sacred 2, which was a lot. So it was crazy how this guy was very, very skilled, very impressive. Mm-hmm. And I worked a little bit for him actually to create some textures. And one of my first effects was. It's not even my effect because I only provided an asset, but he wanted to have like a flag coming out of the ground, but it comes out of a heap of skulls. So one of the first thing I did is putting a lot of skulls into 3D Studio Max, and then having them animate so that it looks like they build up from the ground. So basically just put them on a physically simulated on a plane, and then push a little cylinder from below so that they move up a little bit. And then a little cloth animation for the flag, all baked in Vertex data. So, so this was the first stuff. But when he left the team, we made an add-on. And then without anyone telling me, I was just looking, we have this particle editor here. It was a little tiny program for making particles.
Yeah.
And then I just started doing little particles. And actually I can show you where one of my first ones, if you go to, because I shared the slides for for my latest talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you go to slide 3, 1 second, I sent you the link. On slide 3, you see on the left side one of my first effects which I did. It's a little explosion without any timing or any cool stuff.
Yeah.
Slide 3, yeah, there should be a little explosion from 2009. Yes,
yeah,
and this was basically then the start for me. And from that moment, I did the effects for the add-on. It's really funny because really nobody asked me, but they were just like, "Oh, you also do effects now? Okay, nice." So I did it basically next to my 3D job, and in my next job where I worked at the X space simulation. During the talk with the boss, the job interview, he was like, "Oh, that's nice that you also do VFX because we don't have a VFX artist, so that's cool." And then I did 3D stuff and VFX on the side. And while I was working there, I then started my blog. And my blog was seen by some people, and one of the people was at Tequila Works. And at some point, they asked me, "Hey, do you want to work as a VFX artist for us?" And that was the moment in 2015 where I switched from part-time VFX to full-time VFX.
Wow, I'm sorry to mention this, but that's almost 10 years ago.
True. Yes.
True.
Wow.
So you've been in the industry for much more than a 10.
For 2006. 2004, I started the school.
Wow.
2006, I finished the school, and then yeah.
So I guess because we have a question about AI and if it ever affected you, I want to take that question and also add a section to it. It's like, what do you suggest for newcomers with zero knowledge to do?
Newcomers in VFX, you mean, or in gaming in general? Game development,
VFX, technical art, VFX. Like now, it's a role, right? Here's the thing about technical art. Technical art is a role that is a product of the industry. It's not a role that is taught until now. I can see that you are teaching it at SAA, right, in Vienna.
No, it was a one-time thing, but not regularly. Okay. But yeah, there are some, especially online schools, who teach it, like VFX Apprentice, for example.
Yeah, I'm aware of them. Yeah, of course. But yeah, now back to the question of AI. Then, does it have it ever affected your work in a better way? Do you feel endangered? What is your relationship with AI?
AI, yes. Just to answer the previous question, sure. If you are a newcomer, there are a lot of good resources out there. Just go to the Discords and the forums. There's a real-time VFX forum and a real-time VFX Discord. They are very nice people, and there's also a real-time VFX wiki. And the forum and the wiki, they both have little pages how to start or where to start as a VFX artist. And there are a lot of nice resources linked. And they should give you a good introduction, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah. That would be the first step.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And for the AI stuff, personally, I'm not so concerned. I'm concerned for other departments, like maybe concept art or something, because you can see it already that sometimes companies use AI art. One big example was the Wacom example just recently, where they seemingly used made this little dragon for their advertisement. And especially Wacom should be a company. I mean, they are selling painting gadgets to artists, and they should be very interested in not using AI. And if that company is using AI, it's not a good sign. And so I'm a bit concerned about that. I don't want to be a tech. What is the opposite of optimistic? Pessimistic, like tech pessimistic.
Yeah.
Because of course, in the industry, when the industry shifted to 3D, it was like, oh, that's cheating. Or when photo bashing was a big topic, when concept artists did not paint every pixel by themselves, but used photos to mesh in their stuff. It was like, oh man, that's not a good way, that's cheating. So I don't want to overly pessimistic, but just seeing that companies already replace some people with AI systems is not a good sign.
No.
Personally, for the tech art stuff, I think, or I feel that you have to connect so much things. It's not in quotes just painting a picture. It's you have to have all these systems. So would be interesting to see an AI system replace that completely. But it's a thing which goes around in my head and back and forth.
It's valid, but I feel like we're missing like set of rules to the usage of AI. Yesterday I was in a coffee shop in the countryside, right? Normally those coffee shops, they would have their menus done with like white paper, black text, right? That's it.
Yeah.
But guess what? They have like this AI made Disney style whatever thing they have on their menu. And I'm like, wow. And not only small businesses, but also big businesses, without mentioning names. I don't want to be sued here. I'm really small. But like bakery in Vienna, right? Goes and make like 3 different pictures, one in 3D, Pixar, and the other one is like weird, and the third one is like Picasso. And it's, if you look into it, you're like, what the heck? The hands look wrong. Everything is weird. But like, I don't see the... I guess I agree with you, not to be pessimist, because in the end, us generalists, we see potential in some aspects of it, like because we are already in that role where we didn't put our eggs in one basket. That's what we did, right? Generalists, we just we started investing time into learning frame by frame. We invested time into learning rigging. We invested time into learning 3D programs. So if one of them fails, we can either compose, because we wouldn't need now, and it's a sad news that we wouldn't need a concept artist the same way we would have needed them before. We're more into that role of composing. It's sad to hear, of course. Like, it's not only concept artists, but also illustrators that have been living off of this for a long time. But I still don't see AI doing a lot of context-heavy work, because I still see it lacking the understanding of upside or inside or beside, because those are relative to the person. The subjectiveness, it's missing, because all what it can do is the absolute objectiveness, but it can't do subjective stuff like make me a funny comic. It doesn't know that, because what's funny for some people is different for the others. So the subjectiveness and the artistic expression of AI is very, very limited in that. And I think maybe in time we'll start realizing this.
Yeah, there was a very good point made by Feng Su. He's a very known concept artist. And they are not only doing some concept art, they are doing actually real design. This means when you say you want a ship, like a big ship or something, they do design the interior, the exterior. They design... they give you pictures from close-up and everything. And he explained that AI can make very, very nice pictures, but it cannot do it right now, at least consistently. And this was his example, if there's a huge window on top of the ship, for example, and then you make an interior shot, this window should, of course, be there, and the light should come from this window, which you saw from the outside. Now you are in the inside, and the AI don't does not have this contextual information to make actually a real design. It can make something which looks believable, but actually if you, and this is another point, they also do mechanical designs, real mechanics, which you would work in real if you would build it. And AI can make something which looks like it would work, but it actually does not work. But hey, who knows, maybe in 5 years this also changed. And then Feng Su has to close his school.
Like what? Yeah, I can see it already. Like if you merge it with 3D, with some context and some code, that it could do something. I guess like purely 2D is weird, and it can't, like you just mentioned, do all of those things. And I feel like even if you wanted to make this work, you would need to hire AI engineers, which would cost you a lot of money to make something constantly, frame by frame, believable and real. Because like if you see those videos that are made by AI, every frame the picture is changing. And
that's
for the eye of the beholder, if you know what you're looking at, you are disappointed. If you don't know what you're looking at, maybe you're in a management position higher up, you're like, all right, this works, fire everybody. Well, in the long run, you're the biggest loser.
At least for now, yes. I mean, it develops so fast. Who knows where we are in 2 years? Maybe then the movie frames will be stable. But what I see it is possible that's what you just mentioned, having a rule set of how to use AI, and there is an EU, it's hard to pronounce, EU, like European Union AI Act, which shall look at these things, and we see that the American Writers Guild, they have a lot of control about the whole market. They are very strong, and because when they did a strike several years ago and the whole industry went to stop because of them, I was wondering, I was asking a woman, she worked in film, like, okay, couldn't someone else just continue writing the book or the script for the movie? And she said, no, they are not allowed. So there's really a hard rule set that only writers from the Writers Guild, they can do these things, and it's not possible that I, for example, just go there and then continue working on the script, and then the movie can be produced. So they have very strict rules. So it is possible to have a little bit of regulation. So it's an example for that. But focused on VFX, actually what I tried once is to create a tileable fire texture with AI. Because this would be a thing which I think would hurt nobody. Because what I do is either I do a simulation myself, or I would take a photo, maybe, from one of the resources where you can grab photos from. And so if you use an AI system to create a tileable fire texture for your effect, I think that would be okay. But I must say I was not very successful. But I saw other people creating some nice noises with AI systems actually for VFX. And using it like this would be for me not a big problem. Just, I mean, of course there are other ethical concerns, the energy consumption and stuff like that. But when we take this aside, creating parts of your images, I think would be okay. Even if a concept artist, instead of smashing photos together, now takes an AI image, takes a part of it, and then paints over it and integrates it as well as with the usual photo brushing process, that would be not a problem, I guess.
Yeah,
but who knows?
You would think like labors like this would be easier, but then you have artists that can't find jobs anymore. Like I know a lot of them in Vienna that just can't struggle right now, and they used to be busy all the time, but like just they struggle. And you go to the coffee shop, and here it is. They could have hired someone, but they just did it on Discord or something. It took 5 minutes, whatever.
That's the thing. I think people like Feng Su, I mean, he's a super pro, and his whole design thing is not affected by that, I guess, because they are, like I said, they do contextual work, they do design work. So and we as a VFX people are maybe also a little bit safer, and even the big concept artists maybe. But a lot of these things, like for example, making a little invitation page or something, this is a really nice job for juniors. And
exactly.
And when the AI takes away all these little junior jobs, I mean, it was hard to get into the industry as a junior even before
Exactly. Yeah.
AI. So it doesn't help that you have this system. But hey, who knows? Maybe in 200 years, people will look at us at this old footage from these douchebags who are totally pessimistic and don't see what great
I was
future
talking
AI
the other day
gives
with
us.
some friends, and we were talking about how we've been taken away from a lot of the stuff that we humans used to do back in the day before the Industrial Revolution, like going out to hunt and walking, and like being fit was actually something that was a survival need, to be physically fit and to be out and to move. And right now we're trapped. Like here I am. I'm a streamer, right? I do content. I'm sitting all day, right? And so, but when I train, I feel good about myself. And that is because the evolution said that it should be this way. And now I feel the same is happening, but instead of muscles and bodies, we're taking the effective creative tool, like the creative practice, which is like analog drawing, or taking the process of creating something from zero, right? Because now we have the tools that can create that for us, and without even going into learning foundations and things like that, right? But I feel like this ability of creation has been taken away from us, and I wonder if it is similar to muscles then in the future, where we wouldn't feel like we created something. You know what I mean?
I hope that I can keep a little bit optimistic view on it, in the sense that when photography came around, then people stopped drawing or painting on canvas, realistic stuff, but went to more art things, like non-realistic
Stylized
things, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, taken apart, or if we put aside the problem that maybe juniors or many jobs taken away, which would be of course horrible, maybe it will fuel a bit more creativity now that you look at what AI can do, and then you say, okay, now I do stuff which they cannot. And maybe this and then also maybe games with a little seal, not AI created, all is handmade. Maybe it gets a value.
So
Yeah, because when you go to a little market, you pay a bit more just because you know that these people did the stuff by hand, and this is not industrial production, and this has a value for us, right? And maybe at some point, if there's especially a little indie and they say, hey, this is, it doesn't look as polished as maybe the AI game from next door, but hey, I made this with my own hand. And I found myself.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and I found myself sometimes I see an image from someone, and I'm maybe like on Instagram, and I say, okay, I see that this is not perfect yet, but actually it's not AI, so that's very cool. It's just, it has such a nice value.
It does.
So maybe that's a positive view on it.
It's also like I was this at a museum in Krems, the Donau, and we were looking into, they have this exhibition of The Simpsons, like, and how it was animated in the 80s. And you have those cells, right, for the background, and a cell for the character, and you end up with like 40 pages that get pressed and then photographed, and that is framed. That's one frame of 24 maybe, or of 12, depends on what the production is needed. And I was talking to my friend, I was like, you know what, this analog thing can never be reproduced. That is it, literally. That is that thing. And he was describing to me like how many people were working on this, because you have like people that were just changing the cells, right? Putting the other cell, and people who drew the cells, and people who did the picture, right? And then the editing after that. It covered so many jobs, and right now, if you have Moho or Spine or Automi Animate, it's all like it's like this. But now it's valuable. Now it's like, wow. And I wonder, like, will we go back to analog to protect our art? Is this even possible?
I mean, there are still studios who do stop motion with puppets, and that's amazing. They put so much time into that. I even recently saw a TikTok where they showed that I think an old Popeye movie had not only some parallax scrolling for the backgrounds, which you would see in Obelix or in Disney movies. They actually had 3D sets. And with every frame, they would rotate it a little bit or moving it a little bit, and then the parallax effect would be way better because it's a real 3D object. When I find the video, I can send it to you. This is amazing. And to be honest, I'm very bad with these future predictions because sometimes you look into the past, like you say, you have so many different people just to making a photo and setting all these up, and all these jobs are now basically gone, and the industry is still there and still thriving. I mean, right now not so much, but it will go up hopefully again, right? So there was already a phase where a lot of jobs were lost. And we are still surviving. So I don't want to be like a super pessimist and say, oh, there's doom and we all go to die, because history showed us again and again that it's not the case. But on the other side, like you say, we know people personally who actually struggle right now. And to be honest, as a living artist, it was not so easy even before, especially when you are not like top tier, and you do illustrations and you sell them on Etsy or something. It was hard before already. And I'm really struggling with finding the balance here between a healthy pessimistic view, but also being still optimistic. And I don't know.
I think it's about being realistic and just like reading the current state, and also like knowing people that are endangered with that. I personally am not endangered, but thanks God. But like high level artists are, and it's like I see them, I'm like, wow.
But
maybe we should have some rules, limitations.
Sometimes. Yeah, that's true. But sometimes I use an AI system, and actually the final result strikes me optimistic because it's not so good. And there is one example which I just did yesterday. So there's an AI system. It's called Notebook LM from Google. You can visit the website, and if you have a Google account, you can immediately use it. And what it does is, you can give it a YouTube video link or a PDF, and then it can summarize it for you. It can make an FAQ for you, and that's the most important part. It can create a 15-minute podcast for you, where two people talk about the topic you gave them based on the information you gave them. And I gave them my own talk, my being a tech art detective talk.
Okay.
In this talk, I talk about normals, and we know, normals are perpendicular standing little, let's say, lines from a vertex, and they are there for calculating how bright a surface is. They are there for calculating how your model is lit, basically. So that's how I would explain it. And it was so funny how they explained it, because they said, imagine a cat with fur, and you brush it to one side and then it looks smooth, and then you brush it the other way and then it looks totally different. Okay. This was their explanation for normals. And while it is, when you know normals, it's kind of, it looks like hair, and yes, you can rotate them and orient them in other ways. And yes, the model will look a different way. But to be honest, this explanation with the cat, with the fur, and then you brush it, and then you brush it the other way, and it looks totally different, it doesn't explain everything, I think. It's not. It sounds like an explanation, but you can't really work with that. And the whole podcast was like, it's kind of okayish, but kind of bubbly, to be honest. Not very precise. And this sometimes then strikes me optimistic that we really need people because only a real person can explain what you actually need to know. And this AI system is, what it felt to me? It felt to me like, imagine you have a low poly model with very distinct angles and everything, very, very distinguished stuff. And then you put a subdivision modifier on top and everything is smoothed down a little bit. It's not false, but it's also not as pointy and on point as before. And this was what this podcast felt to me. It's not wrong, but it also does not really help too much. What was impressive?
Yeah, it was impressive for you?
What was impressive is how they sound. They really sound like people, and they even have sometimes these little, when you open your mouth, sometimes you make a little like this. They included these things, and once when they started about normals, the guy was like, "Oh man, I feel like I'm in school again," and then she made the little laugh like, yeah.
Wow.
And this is impressive for an AI system. So that was actually impressive. The content, the topic, not so much, but how they sound.
But like that is actually the sales point of podcasts. Like something running in the background, people blah 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 every now and then. You're like, okay, that's something interesting, and then there's just something in the background to keep you focused on something else. So if that is taken away, I guess the need for that is questionable again.
We should be concerned about it right now.
I don't make any money from this. What I do is I take something that cannot be replicated. Like I take the element of life that cannot be replicated, and if it would be replicated, it wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean? So in this podcast, me and you sitting down right now, it's part of the universe, right? It's those 50 minutes we had, this 1 hour actually right now, is random particles, random atoms in the universe, and somehow me and you are having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just pure, it's genuine. There's nothing that could replicate it. And even if there is something like that, okay, it can't really do that moment that we're having right now. And also, like my Let's Learn streams, they are all about being genuine with my learning. So when I'm frustrated, I will sit in front of a camera for 8 hours being frustrated. Because what I wanted to show with this podcast and with my streaming is the act of how much sweat, blood, and tears it takes to get results like we're seeing in this video above, right? Or here below. So that is something I also ask my guests. Once an artist or technical artist gets to a point in their portfolio, they get known, people know them, they get to a level that it's really good, they become this portfolio, they become this image, and people can't see, or people are not even interested in listening about what did it take you to get here.
Yeah, and then also this podcast sounds very professional. And I think when real people talk about each other, they sometimes scream, sometimes whisper, they have a full range of emotions, which they at least right now don't have. They sound very good, but they sound like a little bit of a corporate podcast, produced by Apple, and now they talk about normals and tech art stuff, but like a real podcast where people have real emotions about things. It's apart
real
from
stories
the
too,
content
right?
itself.
Like real life stories as well.
I mean, there I could come up with a story. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, but it's originally inspired by something, right? But like back to my question, basically, can you tell us about how much it took you, work-wise, to get to where you are right now?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Because basically for several years, at least 3, I would say, I spent a lot of my free time into investigating all these games and writing these articles. And then at some point, Tequila Tequila Works approached me with, hey, do you want to work for us? So it took, and then it took also, of course, all the years before to get me to the point, because there's one specific thing which makes my career maybe a little bit special. When you look at some of these game art tricks, some are not so impressive if you already know the technology. For example, there is screen space reflection. Imagine you have a floor, it's very clean floor, and you have some nice reflections there, and then you have screen space reflections. Let me search them, because I just post you a link, and it's just a floor with reflection. If you look at this today, it's really nothing special. But back then, to me, it was very special. And one of the reasons was that I always worked with custom engines. So engines, not Unreal or Unity, with the newest and greatest features. And so I worked for a long time with a little bit of crude technology. For example, the Sacred engine, it did not support vertex color. Such a little feature, but which means I did not have access to just painting stuff on it. I always also did not have access to the writing shaders. Back then, I didn't know how to write HLSL, and there was no cool node editor like in nowadays Unreal and Unity, where you have easy access to these technologies to build cool stuff. So I worked for several years in the industry, but I could not myself touch a lot of technology, interesting technological, improvements. But I developed an eye if something is special or not. For example, I look then on this floor, and I'm like, wow, this looks so cool. How did they do this? And for me, it was still a special thing, while for others it would be super boring. And then I dive into it and document it, and having this, keeping it a little bit fresh for a while helps to be motivated to actually document it. And then also having an eye developed for stuff which is interesting, and then doing a deep dive how it's done also helps. But I think if you worked with Unreal, maybe from version 1 and 2 and 3, you are so used to all these things that it doesn't appear special to you at all. So why would what you write about it?
And also, it's all the DC engines are available for everybody for free. That's the thing. But the other thing is, once you understand what took to make something like this happen, you can twist it. You can start making effects that could twist that certain effect, or create a portal effect from it, even, because you understand what went into it. Right?
Yeah, and then you also combine all these different learnings, of course. Yes, but yeah. So in general, it took my previous career to develop the eye for just seeing if there's something special into it, or this is maybe interesting. Just for example, to see in the homeworld background, hey, wait, this little detail there, it doesn't look like a Photoshop brush. So let's dive into that. Why does it look so perfectly interpolated there? And this led then to the journey, right? But at first, you have to develop an eye for these details. So this was the previous career, several years of game development. Then it took several years to learn all these things and document it all together. And that, so I would say at least 8 years or something. But of course, now you can learn these things quicker in set schools like the VFX Apprentice or other VFX online schools.
Have you taught that?
There's no. We thought about it once. No.
Okay.
I actually bought the course because Jason Kaiser, he is known in the world. He worked at League of Legends before and then started a school. And when he started the school, I bought the course. Actually, I also two of my portfolio pieces stem from the course. I followed the course, and I bought the course when it was launched to support him. I was an early bird for that one. Yes, and there are so many cool resources now on YouTube also. So now you can get to my level very, very quickly. Actually, instead of me learning it all by myself. Yeah.
I guess you're seeing it the other way around, right? You have came from this environment where there was nothing. There was no one teaching you anything. You kind of just you became a detective, like you said, and you started reverse engineering every little detail you saw online, and I think that have helped a lot in your progress. But also,
Yes.
you were able to be part of the course industry, right? I call it the course, the online tutorial industry. To be able to attend those courses. And I wanted to ask you, have those, like attending VFX Apprentice, have it ever helped you get knowledge that you didn't know before?
I mean, you always learn something when you execute a project, but it was more the self-studying maybe. Well, the biggest part for me was the painting, because I'm not so good in painting, and this course is two-part. First, you make a little concept, and you can see that on my portfolio. Let's see, there should be a slimy thing.
I hope. I have
okay. So there, let me see. So there are two effects, which is there is one project with all the
concepts. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, we see a little lightning strike, a slimy explosion, a swooshy, smoky thing, and then a normal explosion. And this thing is step one you do in the course. And this, of course, was a big learning, because I'm not so strong into painting. And for those, I took a lot of time and did a lot of iterations for them. And for the slimy thing, for example, I even went into Blender and rendered a slimy blob. I was looking at a tutorial how to make make it like this, and then I rotated around and just watched how the light behaves when penetrating a slimy blob surface and stuff like that. So I did a lot of studying for this.
So smart.
And so this was a big learning. But this was basically a decision I made, because the course did not ask for that.
Yeah.
But that's how studying works, right? You do a deep dive even if the prof doesn't request it from you.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I did the 3D versions for two of those effects. And of course, I learned
really
a lot
the effect you made with Houdini and Unreal. This like green slimy effect, the tileable liquid mesh. This one is. Can you walk us like a little bit through how? Okay, you used Houdini. That means, is this an Olympic file? Olympic, I think it's called.
Oh no.
Okay,
no.
Walk us through it. Walk us through this.
So I'm just to Olympic files. They store, like, you can make a liquid simulation, for example, and then they store every frame, like the vertex positions and everything in the file, and then you can play it like a movie, like a 3D movie, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
But this is not what I used here. There's another technology now. It's called vertex animation textures, which is basically the same idea, but now you store all the vertex positions and normals in a texture, and then assemble it in a shader. So, but this is another way to get, for example, liquid simulations into Unreal. But this is not at all what I did here. So the idea is, it's a bit hard to describe. I hope people can see it.
I have it on.
Okay, so best is when you scroll down, there's a progress image, and there you see the first little prototype, which is very ugly. But basically the idea is or let's say it like that. If you have a river in a game, usually you have a little polygon surface, and then you have a tileable texture, and you just scroll it along the polygon thingy, the polygon river, and then it looks like there's floating water, right? And basically the same idea happens here, just in 3D. So instead of a polygon river, I have a spline, and instead of a tileable texture, I have a tileable mesh. So you can put this mesh on the spline several times if you want. It fits together. and then you can move the mesh along the spline, and then it looks like the mesh moves along the spline.
Yeah.
And it could be any mesh, of course. In my case, it's a splashy, watery mesh.
Mm-hmm.
And and when you move it around, then it looks like there is liquid coming out of, in my case, a little pipe.
Yeah.
Yes. And then where it hits the surface, this is just a cylinder with some waves generated in a shader. So this is also not a simulation. This is just several textures calling and doing displacement to the surface, and then a little bit of a little bit. It's a lot of fakey to add a little bit of how's it called, subsurface scattering and stuff like that. So yeah.
So what have helped you here mostly, like when you were stuck in this? Well, the idea is basically you took the original waterfall basic texture idea, right? You have tileable something coming out, and you decided to do a tileable mesh, right? Which is the splashy mesh in the tileable mesh creation, right? You have this tileable mesh creation slide, you have a splashy mesh, and then you have the base mesh. Why would you need a base mesh? Just curious.
It's such a long time. I think I created it. Wait, let me think about it. I think it's just to so when I look at it's interesting because see, this is the thing I learned from myself now, because this is so long ago I forgot what I exactly did and what my decisions were made. So my idea would be that the pure splashy mesh did not look good enough on itself. Also, there's something when you have a liquid and it starts from a source. Usually it's one solid thing, and then it sprays out. So you want to have it dissolve over time, right? And when you scroll down to customization, you see that the base mesh gets actually thinner at the bottom, and the splashy mesh goes wider. So it looks like, or this is at least what I try to do. It looks a little bit like there is a little breakup in the liquid.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
it makes sense.
That's my interpretation of my own work, of my own thought process from back then, basically.
I mean, of course, if anyone is interested, I'm pretty sure they could go to your portfolio on ArtStation and check it out on their own time. I guess you also put a blog article for that one as well.
No, I did not, because the breakdown is just there on ArtStation, and with also a little bit of description. I only make a little article on my blog when I gave a talk or a class or something. But for this specific thing, I did not create another article. Maybe I could make it to have everything on one page, but no. And maybe, I don't know if I did this. It would be also possible to scroll the splashy mesh a little bit faster, so to give you a little bit more variation in the effects, but I'm not sure. Maybe at the end. I think I scale it bigger at the end. Yeah, it's for having the liquid break up. The more it goes down, I think. Yeah. It's funny to look at.
Yeah, it's really, 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 really good. It's such a good effect, and I'm always fascinated by Houdini and Unreal, Houdini and Unity workflows, because there's a bit of, like you said, like this experiment for me is a perfect example of the potential of Houdini that I feel like it's not yet touched upon that much. Because, like you said, there was texture, that was the common way to do it, and you just basically took the same method and ported it into Houdini. I feel like we are missing more courses about that. We are missing more content about that. So I wanted to ask if you ever are interested in teaching a class and actually also selling it online. In that aspect, Houdini, Unreal effect type of thing.
I mean, I gave classes in real schools, non-digitally, and this is not so good for me. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of preparation time. What I like is giving talks, like 1 hour, and stuff like that. But giving a class like over several days and the whole day, that's a bit much. But and online, maybe I'm for example, I have this class. The Unreal Stencil Dragon. I made this effect for a class where I explained a lot of stuff, and several schools invited me to give this class in person or sometimes online. And now there's not much request anymore for that. And I thought maybe I could just record it offline for myself, and then maybe sell it for €5 or something. I mean, the project files, they are free for all people. And I'm just a big fan of providing the knowledge as free as possible. For example, when I was invited to GDC, the first thing I asked, like, okay, will this be free for all in the GDC board afterward? Because I don't want to spend many weeks of preparation time so that then 80 people in the world see that. I prefer having it seen by more people and helping by more people. I mean, of course, it helps me as well, because when these people know me, this potentially gives new jobs in the future. You never know. Like it was with Tequila Works back then. But I also like just the idea that many people can just watch it for free.
Yeah, we have a Vexort in the chat saying that he likes you more and more the more you talk. Because of
that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's very charming, very charming. But here's the thing, like free is great. My content is free as well. But I feel like I would be more committed if I put the cash out there, and I just buy something and then I feel the commitment a bit more. But that's just me. I feel like signing up to a school, attending it with the same people there. They're all committed. They all paid a certain fee. We're all there. We're in this together. I feel that is valuable. Not because it's not for free, but it's valuable because you have limited amount of people that are attending this, especially if you have like terms. And if there was a system that the mentor will also be like joining that every term, so to speak, this course been taught. I'm actually aware of a school that does that very well, and I should really hook you up, just at least in the interest of talking about it. You don't know what could spark from that. Because selfishly, I have to speak selfishly, I would love a course like that, and I would pay a lot of money for a course like that, right? So I think I should hook you up with the right people, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I'm always open to talk, but it's really it's a lot of time. And if you take your hourly rate and you would multiply this by the preparation time, that would be very expensive. And this is usually the schools at VFX is still a niche. It's there are people interested in it, but it's not that these schools are like millionaires right now because of all the people. Exactly. So the price,
we should take this call afterwards, privately, just to talk 5 minutes about what I have in mind. But I think it's been a great episode. Actually, we talked for an hour and a half, man. That's great.
My podcasts sometimes go 4 hours, so I'm used to these things. Not a problem.
That's a lot, man. But hey, it's been great having you on. I look forward to have you on again.
A pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes. And send best greetings to Jasmine, because she's awesome. Yeah, I had her on my show as well, and it was a delight. It's amazing. Yes, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's really great talking to you.
But everybody who's listening to this, join us on the Discord server, the Generalist, so you can leave your messages, and if the host had posted any links or so, you could actually see them there. All right, everybody, have a great day. Simon, we continue the conversation. Bye.
Ciao.